Top 10 thrash metal albums of all time, baby. This is the list that you show to your stepfather so that he finally starts to respect you. And if that doesn't work, then at the very least, got a few albums here that you can put on while he's doing loud sex to your mom. Number 10, from Germany, 1987, Destruction, Release from Agony. Now, I thought Destruction did some cool stuff on Sentence of Death and Infernal Overkill, but I think they really hit their stride on 1987's Release from Agony. Now, on this album, Destruction went from a three-piece that could barely play their instruments to a four-piece that went on to achieve a really impressive level of technicality and songwriting. One little nugget I love on this album is on the track Unconscious Ruins, the way the vocalist says, "Nuclear Holocaust!"
Distills the fall of humanity, nuclear holocaust, our imminent day.
And being an Albert Camus enjoyer, I really like a lot of the existentialist themes that you have with some of the tracks on this album, like Release from Agony, Dissatisfied Existence, Unconscious Ruins. What really makes this album great is how Destruction was able to kind of channel the raw energy and chaos of the earlier work and mold and harness it into these really awesome and intricate compositions that still kind of retain the initial thrash edge of their earlier work. Number 9, from USA, Testament, New Order, 1988. Before I knew anything about Testament, I heard a lot of praise for the guitar player Alex Skolnick, and once I heard this album, I finally understood why he got so much praise. He's got great riffs, great leads, and the vocalist Chuck Billy kind of sounds like James Hetfield, but with twice the lung capacity. Overall, the songwriting is really, really well done. I would say best tracks are Eerie Inhabitants, The New Order, Into the Pit, and Disciples of the Watch. Number 8, The Ocho, Forbidden, Twisted into Form, 1990. Now, Forbidden is kind of one of the more underrated Bay Area thrash metal bands. They were kind of a little bit late to the party, not coming onto the scene until 1988's Forbidden Evil. And once grunge took hold in about 90, 92, basically their commercial prospects went down faster than my ex-wife on the Pool Boy. So this album and band features Paul Bostaff on the drums, who you might know when he replaced Dave Lombardo in Slayer for Divine Intervention and some other albums. And he also had some stints with the likes of Testament and Exodus. This album also features the titanic voice of vocalist Russ Anderson. Prime example of his skills being showcased on the song Step by Step. He just has this crazy, crescendoing, absolutely ear-piercing high note.
They call depressing
Overall, this album is kind of more on the technical side of thrash as opposed to a band like Razor, who's kind of more on the streetwise sense of thrash. Best songs on the album, I'd say, are Infinite, the title track Twisted in the Form, and Tossed Away. Number 7, from Wisconsin, Morbid Saint, Spectrum of Death, 1990. Now, technically speaking, this isn't really an album. It's actually a demo that was released by a Mexican record label, if I'm not mistaken. But, you know, call it an album, a demo, call it the fucking new Billie Eilish for all I care, because quite frankly, what everyone can agree on is that this shit fucking rules. And Morbid Saint, back in the day, actually used to open up for Florida death metal band Death, and that was for good reason. Super fast, super heavy thrash metal riffs that kind of have this hint of death metal into them. Highlights for me on this album would be Lock Up Your Children, Damien, and Scars. Vocalist Pat Lind sports this super awesome high-pitched shriek, and on the song Damien lays down one of my favorite renditions of the word Satan I've ever heard put to record. Yeah, I love that delivery of the line, Satan. I love little shit like that. But, you know, you also got the guitar duo of Jay Visser and Jim Fergades, who are just absolutely shredding throughout this whole album. And Morbid Saint was inactive for quite a while. They were kind of victims of the grunge scene in the 90s, but 34 years later, they came back, 2024, Swallowed by Hell, and I just want to say that this shit fucking rips. Number 6, coming from America's overly polite neighbors to the north, Razor, Violent Restitution, 1988. Razor takes whatever preconceived notions you have about Canadians and says, fuck you, your mom is a hoe, and I know because I boned her. Razor are kind of like the Ramones of thrash metal, where every album gives you about a dozen 3-minute or less get in, get out thrash bangers. Guitarist Dave Carlo is a riff writing maestro, with prime cuts on this album being Enforcer and the title track. And vocalist Sheepdog absolutely brings the pipes on tracks like Hypertension and opener The Martial Arts. You know, if you like no nonsense, kind of streetwise thrash, maybe you're a crossover guy, maybe you like punk, this is the album for you. Number 5, from Brazil, country that I have dual citizenship with, Sepultura, Beneath the Remains, 1989. So Metal Trenches, another big metal YouTuber, says that this album is overrated and, quote, I don't know what you get from this album that you don't get from other thrash albums. Well, you don't want to know what you get from this album? You get fucking awesome riffs, baby. Come on! I mean, come on. You got the title track, Mass Hypnosis, Primitive Future. I mean, if you don't fuck with these riffs, then your favorite band is Poppy and you're 12. So aside from the acoustic intro on the opening track, this album is very direct, very heavy. Max Cavalera's riffs are simple, yet very effective. And drummer and Max Cavalera's brother, Igor Cavalera, absolute beast on the drums, just incredible stamina and power and precision throughout. Number 4, from 1990, Megadeth, Rust in Peace. And they say that success is the greatest form of revenge, and Dave Mustaine's pure spite and hatred of Metallica and wanting to one-up them, in addition to, as well as, Marty Friedman's incredible guitar solos led to the creation of the crown jewel of Megadeth's discography. So Marty Friedman, of course, he shines throughout this album, bringing, you know, some Middle Eastern flair on Holy War's The Punishment Due, the dueling solos of himself and Dave Mustaine on Hangar 18, and of course, the impossibly technical solo on Tornado of Souls. You know, lead guitar work aside, the songwriting throughout this album is incredible. You know, with songs that just flow seamlessly throughout, you know, despite kind of skirting the usual, you know, verse, chorus, bridge, chorus, you know, cookie cutter songwriting formula. You know, Nick Menza, rest in peace, went from an unknown new recruit on this album to a legendary skin basher. And bass player Dave Ellison was probably thinking to himself, in 30 years, I'm going to sext a minor. Number 3, officially outing myself as a poser. 1986, Metallica, Master of Puppets. Come on, baby. Now, admittedly, this was kind of one of the harder albums for me to rank because I don't really listen to Metallica that much anymore. But this was so influential and important for my own kind of development being a young metalhead that I'm kind of reviewing this album by almost going back in time and trying to remember what I felt when I first heard this album. You know, I probably first got into metal music maybe when I was like 12 or so. And I remember back when I had all my Legos and I would organize them, I would just put this on in my CD player, just let the whole thing spin. And that was pretty unusual for me when I was a little kid, because when I was young, I did not listen to albums all the way through. Basically, whatever the singles were, whatever I heard on the radio, that's it. That's all I wanted. You know, everyone knows this album. I don't want to get super deep into it. But, you know, my favorite tracks, Battery, Master of Puppets, Thing That Should Not Be, Welcome Home Sanitarium, and Orion, which has to be my absolute most favorite instrumental song of all time. Number 2, we return to Germany. Sodom, 1987, Persecution Mania. Absolutely the most criminally underrated band in thrash metal. The USA needs to naturalize vocalist, bassist, and songwriter Tom Angel Ripper as a U.S. citizen, because if German Prime Minister Olaf Scholz isn't going to help us foot the bill for Ukraine, bare minimum he can do is let us have Sodom. Story of this album is riffs, riffs, riffs galore. All right, Angel Ripper's voice and bass tone are absolutely visceral. Chris Witchhunter is a giga chad on the drums. And the guitar player did what he was told, so he got to live. The opening track, Nuclear Winter, is one of the greatest thrash metal songs ever written. I also did a drum cover of it, so you can check that out. But you also got songs like Electrocution, Persecution Mania, Enchanted Land, Christ Passion. I mean, come on, people. Sodom has a lot of excellent shit. 1989's Agent Orange, 1992's Tapping the Vein, 2001's M16. But for me, Persecution Mania takes the cake, which is good because I'm diabetic, can't eat that. Before we get to number one, real quick, just want to give the honorable mentions. From Canada, Annihilator, Never Never Land from 1990, featuring classic tracks like Kraft Dinner, Macaroni Maniac, Cheddar Cheese Heart Attack. Anthrax, Among the Living, 1987. Is there anyone out there whose favorite band is Anthrax? I feel like everyone with Anthrax is like, yeah, I like a few of their albums. They're kind of cool. I don't know. Is there anyone whose favorite band is Anthrax? They own every album. I want to know. Creator, Pleasure to Kill, 1986 from Germany. It's Creator. And maybe an obscure pick? Solstice, 1992 from US of A, featuring Rob Barrett from Cannibal Corpse on guitar and vocals. This is kind of a death thrash album, so a little borderline, but to me, kind of errs more on the side of thrash than death. And taking top spot, maybe the most influential album as far as extreme metal goes, Slayer, 1986, Rain and Blood, come on. Stone cold classic for a goddamn reason. 28 minutes of blazing thrash brilliance. You know, this album inspired countless bands and enthralled even more fans. You know, one of the few albums from my early metal childhood that I still love the same even to this day. Angel of Death and Raining Blood are absolute institutions of metal music, but as my adolescent ears dug deeper, I got my face ripped clean off by Piece by Piece, Altar of Sacrifice, Criminally Insane, Postmortem. I mean, this album absolutely redefined speed and metal, and of course, Dave Lombardo became the godfather of double bass drumming with his unreal foot speed on this album. I mean, literally, this is Slayer. Alright, what are we talking about? If you don't fuck with this album, go fucking listen to Alcest or some shit. Alright, so that's my list. I have refined your palate. I have helped you earn the respect of your stepfather. So now that this video is over, go out there, go get a fucking job.